Revenge is like a poison that you drink hoping somebody else will die. So how do we begin? How do we start this journey? Jesus gives us the answer, straightforward. Matthew 5:44, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you.
One visit.
It's time to be the hero.
You know, it's the least you could do to make
do it on purpose.
I don't remember anything. It's totally surreal to me.
I wake up every morning to how real it is.
Looking for a hero.
My kid is drowning in his own guilt.
And he won't let anyone take it away from him, and so I'm praying that you can.
Like you've never seen.
Alex!
God, he's the pill that keeps me alive.
No, I can't let him inside. Don't you get that?
He's already inside. Let him finish what he started.
I am not in the business of saving.
What if you're the only one who can?
I really thought I didn't believe in God anymore. Then you came back. And there's just no way you'd be here without God.
See the struggle? See the struggle there? In story structure, in writing stories, the classic terms for hero and enemy are protagonist and antagonist. The protagonist, it comes from the Greek word the word from which we get the word agony, to struggle, the one towards whom the struggle is directed. They're the center of the story. They may be bad guys. So we've seen movies in which the hero is not necessarily heroic, and the person who's we would call the enemy or the bad guy is called the antagonist against the struggle or the struggler. It's difficult. It's a struggle. This story, as I wrote it, I realized is a story of struggle to get past the hunger, the desire for revenge, to get even. C.S. Lewis put it this way: do not waste your time bothering whether you love your neighbor. Act as if you did. And as soon as we do this, we find that one of the great secrets is when you are behaving as if you love someone, you will presently come to love him. Years ago, a friend of mine, my roommate, and I were at a restaurant in California where we lived, and we had the worst waiter in human history. The guy was rude, curt. He brought our food, he brought the wrong order, he brought it late, he brought it cold, and when I suggested that maybe it could be heated up or something like that, he said that I had a bad attitude and that I might want to leave and go someplace else. I had a bad attitude. Well, about 2 months later, we had a third roommate, and about 2 months later, we brought in a guy and interviewed him to be our roommate and thought, oh, okay, it seems a little quiet and solemn, but he came in and he became our new roommate, and right away I noticed that he was just like cold and distant, and I was trying to figure out, it was bugging me. I could never leave something like that alone. So finally one day I said, hey, can we talk? I mean, something up with you? And he told me I had a bad attitude. And then it clicked. This guy was the waiter at the restaurant. This is the worst waiter in human history, and now he's my roommate. And then he said, look, I'm just going to move out. I can't take you guys, so I'm going to move out. And because he had nothing to lose, he started telling me about his background. Not too long before we'd seen him as the worst waiter in history, his wife, the mother of his 2 children, had had an affair and left him for his best friend. And he was doing everything he could just to stay alive. No wonder. And all of a sudden, all this resentment just softened. I went, oh. And we prayed. He never moved out. And to this day, 38 years later, he is one of my closest friends. He was in my wedding. He was a member of the wedding party. Worst waiter ever. Waiter from hell became the waiter from heaven. Martin Luther King Jr. said, forgiveness is not an occasional act. It's a constant attitude. The Greek word for mercy literally means compassion or pity, to feel something for another. It's the result of their becoming more real. As a teenager, I went to a golf course, a driving range. I didn't know what I was doing, but I went there with my cousin Larry. I swung back and hit Larry in the nose and gave him a compound fracture. Blood gushing out of his nose. 20 years later, as guys in our late 30s. We were at a family Thanksgiving dinner, and everybody said, "What are you thankful for?" And out of the blue, Larry says, "Well, there's one thing I'm not thankful for." Mitch, you never, ever apologized for what you did to me. And I didn't even remember. I barely remembered like he did. And he said, "It's not the pain you caused me. It's not what you did to me. It's the fact that you never told me you were sorry, that you never apologized." And the family spoke up for me. They said, "Oh, honey, let it go. That was 20 years ago." And God whispered to me, "Don't let it go. Fix this." And so I looked at Larry and I said, "I am so sorry, Larry. I was just a stupid, selfish teenager, and you're right. I didn't tell you what you needed to hear, that I was sorry." And Larry stared at me for the longest time, kind of see if there was something fake about what I was saying. And then he said, "Okay, I forgive you." And he had said also, by the way, when he brought this up, he said, "This is why I don't believe in your God. I don't believe your God is real or you're real. You're not real, you're fake." And after I said this, 1 year later, he died. And his wife said, "Larry became a believer. You didn't know about it, but he followed Christ in his last days. And he told me it was because God made Mitch real to me." Grace is the only balm that can heal our world's wounds. And we are called to enter this great adventure and become like him and become conduits of forgiveness, mercy, and grace. And when we do, Paul says, speaking the truth in love, we will in all things grow up into Christ himself, Ephesians 4:15. And finally, in the end, in the book of Revelation, it says, 22:4, "And they shall live with his face in view, and that they belong to him will show on their faces."